Thank you, James, and thank you for your presentation. It's a tough act to follow, really fantastic, very informative. It is a privilege to be here today. I'm Matei Balaita, I'm the trade economic with the Embassy of Romania. I'm going to try to be speaking today about the business opportunities in the thermal energy space in Bucharest, opening up in Bucharest, the capital of Romania, as the country has embarked on a journey to phase out carbon emissions, carbon emissions by 2050. The energy sector is responsible for about 75% of the EU greenhouse emissions, which makes issues like the diversification of energy supply, transitioning to renewable energy, and improving energy efficiency in a systematic, just, and inclusive way the top priorities for my government. As you may know, the EU Parliament voted this summer to designate natural gas and nuclear as environmentally sustainable energy sources. Under the new EU-approved taxonomy brought about by the raging war in Ukraine, new nuclear and gas-fired plants built through 2030 will be recognized as transitional energy sources as long as they are used to replace dirty fossil fuels such as coal and oil. The text specifies that gas projects can only be financed if direct emissions are kept under a maximum cap, and they switch to fully renewable energy by 2035. Similarly, nuclear power may be funded as long as they pledge to switch to so-called accident-tolerant fuels by 2025, and adhere to certain standards for the disposal of radioactive fuels. As a result, most of the credible energy models going forward show that natural gas and nuclear remains the optimal transition solutions for a country like Romania, where cogeneration and trigeneration are being recognized as the most feasible technical solutions in the short and medium runs. Cogeneration, I'm sure you know, is used to produce electricity and heat at the same time within a single system, starting from one fuel source, either fossil or renewable, and can provide primary energy savings of even 40%, 50% higher compared to those to the separate purchase of energy, electricity, and thermal, and gas to feed the boilers, that is. The impact on the environment is also significantly reduced by eliminating additional sources of pollution and reducing greenhouse emissions. The production of electricity and heat with separate processes generally doesn't permit the use of heat produced by the combustion process, which is released into atmosphere. Cogeneration instead includes the recovery and use of the heat produced by the combustion process, guaranteeing a more efficient use of the primary combustion source. A valid example of cogeneration application is the production of electricity with a generating set composed of an engine coupled to an alternator. The heat generated by the engine combustion process is conveyed and used by a heat generator for the production of heat in the form of carriers, including hot water or steam for civil and industrial uses, and chilled water downstream for a later generation by absorption cooling units. The use of the generated heat makes it possible to define the assembly as a cogeneration plant, if only heat is produced, and trigeneration plant if it's hot and cold are being produced. The Bucharest the greater Bucharest area, the metropolitan area, is one of the 283 European Union regions located in the southeast part of Romania and has a total area of about 700 square miles, out of which Bucharest proper takes about 100 square miles. The city has a population of about 2 million permanent residents, and the daily transit about 4. With a centralized heating system designed and executed in the 50s and the 60s, the city has a primary thermal energy transport network and an outdated secondary thermal energy transport and distribution networks. Only the cities like Sofia and Moscow, unfortunately, currently have this kind of thermal energy transport and distribution systems in the world. Public heating supply in Bucharest, supply the infrastructure to supply thermal energy includes a thermal transport network comprised of roughly 600 miles of pipeline, out of which 65% are over 25 years old, and a secondary thermal distribution, about 1,600 miles of pipelines, out of which half are at least 25 years old and more. Due to the age of transport distribution system, the heating in Bucharest system inefficiencies are very high, which calls for immediate investments in the rehabilitation of the network. Companies that produce thermal energy for the city are both private and public, and each of them delivers heat to a number of consumers located in the neighboring areas. The energy sources within the system operate interconnected by means of a middle ring, which in the event of a power plant failure allows consumers to be supplied from another source in the system, while respecting certain restrictions. From both a quantitative and qualitative point of view, the thermal agent that flows can only be circulated within certain limits in areas clearly determined by hydraulic regime analysis. According to the data recorded on December 31st, last day last year, thermal energy is delivered to about approximately 9,000 residential buildings, representing about 1.2 million inhabitants. The public thermal energy supply system provides approximately 72% of the capital's thermal energy needs, out of which population consumption is 92%. Non-household are like about 500 public institutions, about approximately 3,700 manufacturing plants. And losses of the system inefficiencies run up to approximately 37%. So the good news is it can only go up from here. The municipality is the main supplier of public heating service in the city. That is, it owns the entire thermal energy transport and distribution network within its administrative area. In order to streamline the overhauling of the public heating system, the municipality has adopted a string of administrative decisions that would lead to the creation of an NGO called the Intercommunity Thermal Energy Development Association, which is tasked with developing the strategies and elaborating the terms of reference and documentation for future public tenders, and create and implement regulations. It should be noted, since its creation last year, the association has managed to secure about $254 million, that is financing from the EU for the rehabilitation of about 300 kilometers, which is about close to 200 miles of the district heating network pipeline. The implementation of design execution will be awarded through a system of international tenders organized by the municipality. Let me just add a couple of, I want to point out three of the larger major projects there in the pipeline, a small pun intended, that I would like to speak to you about now. So first one, it's a new power and thermal energy production capacity of high efficiency in cogeneration, trigeneration, with a capacity of about 100 megawatts. Will be located northeast of the city, deficient areas from the point of view of thermal energy supplies on the land, and the land will be donated by the municipality. The technical solution could be thermal engines or gas-powered turbines. It is possible to accept any technical solution that would lead to economic and financial efficiency, especially in the context of the global fuel crisis, I have to say. I just read the headlines this morning, and apparently there is gas in Bucharest through November. So, so people are, the head of the national gas company is, I hope God is on our side and we can make it to January. So it's a huge problem. According to the Romanian legislation, the electricity produced will be sold through the national electricity transmission distribution system, and the thermal energy will be bought by the city hall and delivered to the population. The municipality is open to any form of collaboration, including financing, credit component, including power purchasing agreements with partners who have the capacity to design, realize, and exploit such an investment, including producer of electricity, thermal energy production capacities. The second is an incineration plant with the capacity to produce electricity and thermal energy production, and thermal energy. With a burning capacity of about 235,000 tons a year of waste, project involves an important component of integrated waste management in the city of Bucharest. The land on which the incinerator would be located is outside Bucharest. It will occupy about 15 acres, also donated by the municipality. And both financial and conditions under which both the electrical energy and the thermal energy produced will be used are similar to the previous one. And the municipality obviously is open to any form of collaboration, including the financing credit component, with partners have capacity to design, realize, and manage. And the third one is the location of the creation of 20 thermal energy production capacities of maximum 3 megawatts each in certain deficient areas of the city. The desire is to transfer 20 thermal points belonging to the municipality into thermal power plants producing thermal energy. So following a modernization or retechnologization process, the municipality intends to purchase 20 thermal energy production units and place them in the 20 thermal points. And they're working currently, the feasibility studies are underway to find the most effective technical and economic solutions. Obviously, interested parties are welcome to reach out, and we would be happy to give them a lot more information, a lot more applied details. In the end, I'd like to remind everyone that Bucharest is Romania's most developed city with the highest standard of living in the country. It contributes about 22% to the economy's GDP, a quarter to its industrial production, and the GDP per capita is 131% of the EU average, which makes sense. Like capitals such as Athens is 98% of the EU average, Madrid is 128, and Berlin is 113. So it's a fairly rich city, and it has the resources and the financial and the management resources to carry through. So it would be a good business opportunities. The city's heating infrastructure needs represent as many incredible opportunities for sustainable growth in a politically and economically stable and predictable environment. Latest news from Brussels is that Romania will be accepting the Schengen area within the next few months. And the next year we will be joining OECD, which should help further elevate the country's business friendliness profile. For those of you, obviously, who may be interested in learning more, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have and assist you with getting the right access to the right information. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Yes.
1 second there, Steve.
Thanks. Very interesting. And kudos to Romania.
We try.
Well, when you talk about thermal energy, okay, you're talking about gas-fired thermal transfer?
They're looking for all possible solutions, but gas and nuclear, yes, for cogeneration, yes.
Okay.
Gas.
But no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No.
But no geothermal.
Geothermal too. I mean, there is a possibility for geothermal. There is geothermal springs around the city. So we're working actually. We're in contact with a very highly innovative company. It's called GeoX, which is using a new technology to harvest geothermal power without. I'm sorry, I would have to get back to you on that.
I understand.
But geothermal is an option, yes.
Yeah,
and that's a new solution that reaches out deeper. It's a little more expensive, but it can be the beauty of it can be replicated pretty much anywhere in the world.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have a question. How's all this getting funded? What options do people have, like organizations?
Yeah. Well, that's an excellent question. Let me see if I have my notes here. So they're obviously outside private capital, and there's a number of EU-funded programs, national and regionals. So we got $31 billion from the European Structural Investment Funds for 2014-2020. And with its own contribution of 5.3, that we have now a total budget of about 36.47 billion to be invested in various areas. There are also European finance programs related to the development of energy projects, especially in the relation to renewable energy. Another financing line is dedicated to reforestation. The sector operational program for large infrastructure with a total allocation of $12 billion. There's another priority project, Access 6 from the EU under this program, and is dedicated to promoting clean energy and energy efficiency for a low carbon economy for about 200 million euros. The sector operational program, they have all this alphabet soup, SEO, sector operational program regional development, 2014-2020 with an allocation of 8.25 billion from the European Regional Development Fund, supporting the priority axis number 3, supporting the transition towards a new, a low carbon economy, has a priority investment line dedicated to energy efficiency in public buildings and apartment buildings, and encouraging energy solution based on bioenergy and production. And from, there are many other funding sources available for both private and public. The problem is in the past have been the access to these funds. It might have been a tad difficult. I think they are taking the right steps, and I think it is an emergency pending doom, you know, energy, which has prompted authorities to move faster and in a more agile way.